On the battlefield, all you can see are gray, smoky skies with mud where grass in a town used to be, cannons hail down with soldiers nervously held in dug pits to only be shot with artillery and cannons, with men unable to walk, crying in pain, knowing this will be their final resting place. The Imperial 203rd Ariel Mage Battalion arrives to apply backup. Viktoriya Ivanovna Serebryakova is being yelled at by her commanding officer, telling the woman to retreat. Visha tells the officer that her major told them to not retreat no matter the cost, just to be blasted away. Above, she hears the person she respects the most, Platoon Commander, 2nd Lieutenant Tanya Degurechaff, reciting a prayer before going into battle, asking her lord, may she destroy the enemy. She comes to tell Visha to pick off any survivors. The Empire is the strongest military power and has the greatest industrial growth in the world, but is now surrounded by potential enemies. To combat the problem, the Fatherland's army has to go finish them off. In 1924, the Imperial Strategic Headquarters discusses the situation, that being on the Rhine. Vice Director Lieutenant Colonel Erich von Rerugen gives a briefing on the situation. Deputy of Strategy Brigadier General Kurt von Rudersdorf has to pull a main force back, knowing this would weaken the industrial areas. Angered by their mistake of attacking the Alliance so rashly, Vice Director Hans von Zitor suggests the men break up the border defense to have them fight in the Western territories in the attempt of giving new troops to the unit, being praised by the idea, but expressing this is only a temporary fix. But the battlefield getting worse, injured soldiers limp away, with more enemy forces wandering closer to the territory. Tanya orders for artillery spells, then men follow orders, with Corporal Coast and Harolds getting a little bit too rowdy, talking a bit delusional, wanting to go take them all on by themselves, breaking formation and disregarding their orders, diving into enemy territory. Tanya is disgusted from this. Later that day on the base, 2 men are being discharged for disobeying orders. Tanya only meant to lightly punish them, but telling them the army is like a machine, that not even a single cord can be out of place. Kors disagrees, bringing up how many troops they took out, then goes a little bit further, saying he won't accept this. With Harolds joining in, Visha is worried, knowing this could turn very ugly, but she's able to stop the lieutenant from slicing 2 of them, but the lieutenant vows they will be punished for this. Visha is worried, with the 2 men being in her class. Commander 1st Lieutenant Ihlen Schwarzkopf tells her they've been stationed in the pillbox in the rear, making her feel relieved. That night, Visha breaks formation, collapsing from exhaustion, having not ate the previous day. Tanya goes for her, telling her she doesn't deserve to wear the uniform she's wearing and to give it back, then gives her orders to gather the men. At their briefing, Tanya tells them that a rescue mission will be difficult, seeing that Visha is worn out, not wanting her men to simply just die on her. Visha feels guilty and volunteers herself for the mission, with pushback from Tanya, with Ihlen finding it acceptable if she's volunteering herself. Enemy recon mage companies are sent out to obliterate the trenches. Outnumbered, having already arrived late, and only having 1 platoon to fight, Visha calls for them to retreat. Tanya reminds her that she's the one that volunteered for this mission, so she must accept it. Tanya then recites a prayer, and then rushes into battle by herself, wildly dodging at all attacks. Tanya fires, taking the head of the 2nd commander. The enemy troop fly higher to regain control of the battle, but Tanya can fly even higher than them, and can fire her rifle at any angle, being above 10,000 meters. She gives a speech about her duty as a soldier, and how they've invaded the Empire, telling their enemy to leave, but the foolish commander is arrogant, resisting. Saddened by this, she uses the multi-layered mage shot that one-shots the enemy, making a diffusive, magical explosion, a blast that even if you dodge, can still finish you off. Due to the oxygen deprivation and the carbon monoxide poisoning, Tanya does not need backup. The Republic gives a briefing over Tanya, being the mage that single-handedly won the battle, nicknaming her the Devil of the Rhine. Visha goes to report that Corporal Coast and Harolds were trapped and put to sleep. Tanya answers back with already knowing this information, explaining pillboxes don't move, making easy targets that can't escape. Visha is horrified, asking her did she mean for this to happen, with her turning around, giving a monstrous grin. In 2013 Tokyo, Tanya recalls her previous life as a normal salary man, admitting he wasn't a great person and had a twisted personality, but he was a hard worker, and he made his work invaluable for his employer, going above and beyond to secure his post, coming off as cold but still knowing he was better than his subordinates. especially this incompetent man sitting in front of him, that put himself in his own position, having missed many days of work, and failing to fix so, even after receiving several notices and warnings, with the man giving a sob story about his family and his daughter's college fund, firing the man, with him being okay with doing so as long as his pay is well, finding it easy when a supervisor tells him to do so, being a person that always follows orders, hoping to lead a life of luxury as an executive. Once this is all over, later at the train station, the man that he recently fired follows him and goes to get revenge, pushing him while a moving train comes into the station, with the man the type of person to be impulsive rather than reasonable. Just then, time stops, as only he is able to remain conscious in this fourth dimension. A being then speaks to him how humans are arrogant now, forgetting what's right and what's wrong, and that they need to have faith in their creator. Tanya questions this, not believing in the entity called God, and finds it hard to believe God would actually stop time to talk to him right before he's about to kick the bucket, using the body of random bystanders and a pigeon, with the being saying that's correct. Tanya argues this to be incorrect, being some type of hallucination, stating he's a rational person, stating hypothetically, it's odd that God would do all this just to prove a point, assuming this must be the devil or something else, nicknaming him now as Being X. Being X is angered by this, stating he's over the reincarnation and must follow the rules, but will make an exception for this man. Tanya tells him since he's God, shouldn't he follow his own rules and avoid heat-of-the-moment decisions like this? Also mentioning, if he feels overworked, it's a sign of a bad business model, telling him of course, there's no faith. He failed his customers' needs, saying he only matters to the weak or desperate. Being X hears this and decides to put him in a world with no technology, remove his social status, and put him in dire danger. Tanya, hearing this, pleads with him not to be too hasty, but it's too late. Being X tells him if he dies again, there will be no reincarnation process for him. 1904, Tanya is reborn, put in an orphanage as a little girl in the outskirts of the Imperial capital, Berun. 1913, Tanya makes sure to get the food that she needs to survive. This world has a great divide between the rich and the poor, with conflict and widespread madness, where the men crave battle, seeing there's not much of a way for a little girl to survive. Luckily, when testing, she had a high aptitude for magic. The military also had low requirements, so she decided to volunteer and enroll, go through their education, and be well off early. She goes to the Imperial Army officer training. Knowing she wouldn't get another reincarnation, she wanted to be able to survive any conflict, no matter what, wanting to survive to get a luxurious life that he'd always wanted, which would also serve as great motivation and revenge to Being X. The Empire is a meritocracy, so Tanya can easily rise to the ranks, being an instructor for new recruits. While giving her drill sergeant job of humiliating the officers and making them fall in line, the soldiers think it's a joke and that this class will be easy. Soon later, an explosion goes off, injuring some of the men, this being because the men were late and not prepared. One soldier tries to retaliate, but they're putting him down. Hans pleads with her to stop, looking to her eyes, knowing what type of person she is. Tanya finishes her academy training and begins her patrol duty. The Norden region detects enemy troops flying in their airspace. Tanya is immediately promoted to second lieutenant, as she has to now face off the enemy alone. Codename Fairy, she receives ground support and directs them on where to go. Enemy interference sends off heavy combat, with her having to hold out for 600 seconds. When she asks her commanding officer to retreat, she refuses. Tanya grips her teeth, knowing she's going to be alone for a very long time. She turns around and engages the enemy. The enemy company charges at her. Tanya is shaking in fear of her first battle, which leads to hysteria, declaring it to be an honor to be a hero in battle, gracefully fighting, wounding the men. Even when cornered and out of ammo, she's ruthless, using tactics and magic, being very dangerous, smiling, putting on a good show, looking like she sacrificed herself for the country so she may exit the battlefield. In the medical room, she's seen as a military hero, rewarded with the Silver Wing Assault Badge, with Tanya hoping they don't send her back to the front lines to boost morale. Deep inside a dark laboratory, the scientist Andelhed von Schugel is wanting to use the young ace for his next project. In the northern garrison, Tanya is redeployed to the tactical squad, getting the job she always wanted, but also not wanting to seem too excited. The commander informs her that given her age, it wouldn't be a good look on them to send her off in the battle just yet. She's then told to go to the general supply staff to test off new equipment. They are receiving the Aluminum Type 95 jewel, a jewel that grants unmatched power, and then given an air suit But the air suit being unstable, with Tanya wanting to come back down, the assistant allows this to happen, but the doctor wants her to go even higher, wanting to test out his experiment, disregarding her life. Tanya argues the durability, saying the device would explode at any moment, calling it defective junk, with it reaching its limit very soon, right when it seems she's gained control. But the new jet suit malfunctioning and exploding, doing this multiple times. The soldier is furious, calling for their jobs and funds be terminated, with head engineer and Tanya arguing about why it didn't work, putting each other down and blaming each other. Tanya gives her report, spending the rest of the day writing it, requesting a transfer as well. The men reading the report think of the moral question of having her in the army in general, ultimately agreeing to all the report details, leaving her very pleased, being the happiest she's ever been. Being X stops time, mad she hasn't developed even a hint of faith in God. Tanya laughs at being X, having 10 years go by with her being just fine without having being X. Being X is mad, questioning how people be praising him at this time if they were able to speak with him, but Tanya not. Tanya is confused. Why would she praise a wooden object, questioning if he's really serious? Being X then passes on his blessing, saying she'll need it, saying he has a plan. The next morning, Tanya is summoned by the terminated science department, wanting her to test out the magical energy transformation, with it flying at an uncontrollable altitude. The doctor has more confidence today, and was told and tells her he had a visit from God, with the doctor saying they're both in this together now. Tanya is unable to back out, in risk of endangering them all, with the rest of the scientists coming out to witness this. Being X stops time, revealing he's setting her up, telling her that she must pray to him anytime she wants to use that jewel. Tanya calls him a cheater. Just then, Tanya lets out a prayer, with him using her to spread his holy name, reaching a level of magic never seen before, with her mad that she's been cursed. With the doctor leaving, smiling, confirming he did talk to God last night. 1 year later on the Rhine, she's on the front lines again, remembering how she ended up here, vowing for revenge. At the Imperial Strategic Headquarters, the men go over Degurechaff's track record, being the only mage able to use the new experimental jewel. They're also being decorated and a proven winner, wanting to promote her again and give her command of the new special unit squad. But Erich argues against this, commenting on her monstrous personality and record of it, while some argue the morality of putting her on the force. Visha is terrified for being left alone with her, having already questioned her once today and knowing what she did to fellow officers Corporal and Harald, but she's relieved to seeing she's being promoted to an officer and now able to lead the front lines. Visha is also a believer of God, with her praying, with Tanya actually doing this to cover for herself. Tanya is now a first lieutenant, going back to the academy, and is able to study, with a fellow officer looking over her notes. And this is where we're going to leave off for today's video, with the anime being broken down into multiple parts. Now if you liked the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll be uploading daily videos just like this one, so I'll see you next time.